It's a clash of the two titans of podcast interfaces, the mashup of mixers. To enter the ring, only one leaves. Yes, it's the Mackie Dlz creator, or Chungus, versus the Rodecaster Pro 2, the reigning champion. Who will come out on top? So let's do this as clean as possible. I have these categories that they will both be judged in. If a unit wins a specific category, it will be awarded a single point. Ties are allowed, but will be avoided if possible. And the mixer with the most points at the end wins. Simple, yet effective. Now, there is a bit of an unfair edge here, as the Rodecaster Pro 2 has been available for a year now and is filled out quite nicely. That said, this is more for the buyers who want to jump in at this very moment. But as things change, I'll be happy to repeat this showdown in the future. So let's get this rolling with build quality. Here the two units are actually very close. Both bodies include plastic, though the Rodecaster does have an aluminum top. Buttons and knobs are quite similar in build quality and usability as well. The pads are quite similar, and while the screens vary wildly in size from a build quality perspective, there's very little differential. However, as I mentioned, the Rodecaster Pro 2 does have that aluminum top, and there is nothing really substantially different from a build perspective, so I guess the first point has to go to Rode. And for specs, these machines are rather closely matched as well. They both boast very competent numbers. The big standout might be the gain, with the Rodecaster Pro 2 offering up 76 dB and the Mackie offering up 80. But in reality, those 4 dB really have no use. No one needs 80 dB of gain, but there are two things that make these units stand out. The Rodecaster Pro 2 has two USB outs. That's a pretty powerful feature. And the Mackie has that 3.5mm phone jack. Again, something that a lot of people are mourning, as it wasn't included in the second edition of the Rodecaster Pro 2. That said, with the usability of the second USB, I think I have to give this one to Rode. It is a big enough deal breaker for some, while the 3.5 jack is something that we can all live without, or at least that's what we've learned. So it's 2-0 Rode. Let's start digging into the usability of the unit now. The menu systems on both are very good, yet very different. Rode has a standard menu style, while Mackie has gone with the tab style. Both are very well fleshed out and easy to navigate. But I would have to say, from a beginner's perspective, I think Mackie has a bit more flow to it, and it isn't as easy to get lost. I've been using Rodes for the past year and I've gotten used to it, but I do remember it being a bit overwhelming. The tab system on the Mackie just feels more laid out and transparent, easier to navigate from day one. So Mackie gets on board with a point. Now, this can be tough to judge because the Rode experience was quite a while ago, but I do remember the launch having a bug or two. That said, when you trailblaze, it's bound to happen. Mackie got the privilege of learning from these mistakes, so it wouldn't be fair to judge on the launch alone. However, the ability to plug this thing in and go, not only for us seasoned pros, but also for the beginners, is a big deal. Both units have very similar plug-and-play models and are, at least in my mind, similar in how easy they are to get up and running. I will have to say though, Mackie does get a slight edge in the walkthrough. Very thorough explanations on how to get the unit up and running, and while the Mackie does boast a bit more complexity in things, the walkthrough is a welcome plus for people just starting out. And while the Rode does have a decent startup process, I really think Mackie gets the edge here, even though it is very slight. And just like that, we got a tie game, 2-2, baby. All right, then on to faders, and for both units, the faders do feel decent. The actual fader control feels nice on both, and Rode has a bit more throw in theirs, but it is a very minor difference. But where the two seem to separate is in the quality of the throw. Rode's feels consistent throughout, fader to fader, while the Mackie seems to get looser or tighter depending on where you are in the throw. Also, a few of the faders on the Mackie have just slight clicks in them. It's nothing like that on the Rode. So this is an easy one. Both are great, but Rode is easy to call as better. The Rode regains the lead at 3-2. And I think this is the point where Rode's going to build up a bit of a lead, but I think this might change in the future. Rode's pads have had 2 generations to mature, while Mackie has just implemented them. And with Rode, there is a clear advantage. Now, I don't know if there's an ability to change the weight of touch necessary to activate the pads, though it is something available in the cheapest models of MIDI controllers, so I bet it is. But as it stands now, Rode's implementation is just better. Mackie's requires way too much force. That said, I think this will be a completely different story if we revisit this in the future, so stay tuned for that. It's 4-2 Rode. And again, this is another one that will probably be different in time, though for this one, Rode has the clear win. Smart pads are very feature-rich, and the ability to use them as MIDI triggers makes this a clear win. The included voice changers are cool and all, but the MIDI is really what sets this apart. Looking forward to see how Mackie fills these out in the coming months, and while it looks like Rode is running away with this, we do still have a long way to go. It's 5-2 for Rode. So we're covering both the quality of the processing as well as the implementation of it. And this is going to be tough because I think Rode has better out-of-the-box simple setup results. I do not like Mackie's presets for the easy mode. Rode's is much easier to utilize and change, while Mackie's is a single button approach. Now, when you switch them over to Pro mode, the Mackie gets the instant W for the layout. And yes, the screen does play a big role in this, but it also has to do with the larger real estate in general. The knobs on the side are awesome for really zeroing in on the EQ, and you can control by hand as well. A better approach than the single knob that Rode has. Both basically have the same processing. While out-of-the-box settings are better on Rode, I think the real test is in the advanced or Pro mode. And I'm gonna have to give this one to Mackie. Just super well done here. By the way, let me know which one do you like. This is the processing of the SM7B, all the processing minus the noise gate on the Rodecaster Pro 2. Also, this is all of the processing on the DLZ Creator. I just do not have the gate on because the gate is garbage. I'm sorry. Firmware can't be judged head-to-head as they're very different points in their growth. That said, the actual updating processes can be, and for Rode, it's just a slam dunk here. Simple process right from the unit. It can download and install the firmware update. The Mackie simply cannot do this right now. And that is something I think will be changing in the near future, considering it has that Ethernet connection on the back. At least I hope it does. 6-3 for Rode. And I believe that lead is only going to get bigger here. The Rodecaster Pro 2 is just dumb shit simple. It was designed that way, and frankly, I really struggle to see how they, or anyone else for that matter, would be able to improve on the simplicity of the Rodecaster Pro 2. Not to mention, I prefer the way Rode set up their processing for beginners, and the workflow of the unit is just so well fleshed out. Again, Rode has had several years on Mackie for this stuff. Now, I will say that Mackie is very good at walking people through the processes, but it is still a mixer that comes from a professional background. Some habits might be hard to break. 7-3 for Rode. This, though, is the complete opposite, and frankly, I think more important in my mind. Mackie absolutely crushes it here, and that's thanks in part to the massive screen. Now, if you know your way around a mixer, this thing will feel like home to you and offers up a ton of goodies. The cool thing about this, though, is that it's only going to get better as well. 7-4 for Rode. Cue the comeback. Screen size and responsiveness. You know I had to, because it would be completely unfair to not give props to Mackie for this thing. But to clarify, Rode gets a full-on nod for the responsiveness of their screen. Even a year after updates, not an ounce of slowdown. That's really impressive. But let's not kid ourselves here. When talking screen, size does matter, especially when touch is involved. Mackie has an absolute beast of a screen, and it makes for a very easy point. 7-5 for Rode. Mackie's back in the game. So this is another thing that will be changing in the future, though I do wonder if Mackie's ever going to dip into routing. When you put these units side by side, the one clear disadvantage Mackie has is routing. Now, Rode has implemented both input and output routing, and they've done it in a very simple way. Something that routing is not known for is simplicity, so that's kind of cool. It's actually an impressive feat for them and kind of gives them the point right away. Sure, all the other features are great, but until Mackie can meet Rode head-to-head for all them mixed demons out there, this is Rode's point. Again, though, this will be interesting to see in a year or so after a few updates from Mackie. Starting to think that an update to this video will be a sure thing. Drop a like if you think so too. 8-5 for Rode. I'm including this one because people scream at me if I don't, as if there's any chance of someone picking up on the nuances of the preamps through YouTube. These are going to sound the same, and frankly, barring any weird anomalies of sound, there are none for me here. This one has to be a tie, so it's 9-6 Rode. However, we can quantify preamp noise, but we can't judge these two boards based on max gain because there's a 4 dB difference between them. However, we can look at the differential at 60 dB of gain and 70 dB of gain. Now, I'm just going to gain it up in post for ease of listening, and we'll see who wins. Cool? This is the 60 dB test on the SM7B through the Rodecaster Pro 2. This is the 60 dB test of the Mackie Dlz Creator. Now we have the 70 dB test on the SM7B through the Rodecaster Pro 2. This is the 70 dB test of the Mackie Dlz Creator. Now, I do have to admit there's some differences. However, can we not all agree that being able to do ASMR with the SM7B is kind of cool? And I think that alone gives Mackie the point here. Might be a bit of a pity point, because no need to say sorry to Rode. I think we all know how this is going to end. No real issues for either Rode or the Mackie with headphone preamps. Now, I have heard a lot about latency on the Rodecaster Pro 2 and the headphone outs, but I haven't encountered anything worthy of the complaints I've heard. Not sure if it's just a bunch of people parroting it after someone gave a bad review, but I just don't hear any latency that's worthy of a mention. Same thing with Mackie. Now, that said, there is a power differential here, and Rode gets the win with the much more powerful headphone preamps. That said, I don't really have any issues with the headphone preamps on the Mackie, but I guess numbers and stats do kind of have to count for something. 10-7 for Rode. Now, granted, this isn't specific to the unit, but more for a company-wide grade. Both companies have had phenomenal responses. Every time I review a product, I call into the support to ask an inane question, and Mackie, they handled it very well. Of course, we all know Rode's track record of awesomeness here, but it was nice to see similar responses from Mackie. It's an easy draw. And I guess that kind of wraps it up. Rode takes the W. To be fair, though, the margin on this was a lot closer than any competitor has come to Rode, and I believe that a lot of that is going to change, and it's pretty impressive that this is Mackie's out-of-the-box first attempt, no real upgrades on this thing. And Mackie's hinting at some really cool things in the future. Now, their development team is a year behind Rode, so it'll be interesting to see if they're any good at playing catch-up. While this is a clear win for Rode, I don't think it's going to be as clear over time, though. Mackie did a good job here. What do you think, though? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below. And if you missed my full review of the Mackie Dlz Creator, you can check it out up here. Cheers, and thanks for watching.